really interesting because usually when people get that form letter response, they just assume it's coming from a computer and there's no need to reply. It's almost like a do not reply type email. But you're saying that if they reply to that, then an actual person can see that and read that. Right?
I read every resume that comes into RiverPoint is read by either myself or my team. Human eyes hit them all. Now, I couldn't do that if I was Garmin. But I can do it at RiverPoint, and so we do have a cut and paste form letter. It's not cut and paste. It's a form letter out of the ATS for each situation. If you don't fit the job, it's one form letter. If you're an entry level candidate, it's another form letter. If you're not in town, it's another form letter. So we do respond to pretty much all the resumes that come in one form or another. And it's not just this is something that I don't think you're going to find in the market, but if you do, God bless those companies for doing this. It's not a form letter saying thanks for applying, your resume is on file. It's a form letter that says thanks for applying, your resume is on file. By the way, if you're looking for a job, here's a lot of organizations that you might want to check out in terms of IT. Oh, if you're interested in job searching resources, here's some of those. Have you checked out the job clubs? It has a lot of information that a job seeker might be able to consume and utilize that you don't find in your typical reject letter. Wow,
that's fantastic. You hit on something, too, that I want to explore a little bit. You said you have a form letter for those people that are out of town. So do you not talk with people that are out of town? You don't do relocation type things?
I had this conversation this morning. Out-of-town candidates are just more problematic simply because when you get down to interviewing, you're going to have to deal with flights in and out, and availability often changes. If someone out of town owns a home, that can become problematic even after they're employed. If they aren't able to sell their home, they may move back. It's just problematic.
Yeah.
It's not that I won't hire somebody from out of town. There's just a whole new set of issues and they're hurdles to me. They're just a whole new set of hurdles to jump.
So their resume really needs to be stellar for you to consider them and have them go through the hiring process.
The resume needs to be stellar, and the person needs to want to be here. And I'll give you an example. I had a guy in Texas a few years ago that he was telling me I've got a bonus coming in 6 months, and I mean he's being very upfront with me. And this is another thing you got to play your cards on when you're working with a recruiter. Tell them everything because they need to be able to really assess the best opportunity. So he's telling me all these things. I've got to sell my house, and this was in 2006, so the market wasn't like it is now. I've got to sell my house. I have a 5-figure bonus coming in. I think it was September, and this was April. And
wow.
He said, so those were the two things that I was really concerned about, and then also getting him up here for an interview was a concern. And he says, well, I have family in Kansas City. That's one thing, and that's why we want to move. We have family. We just had a child. We want to move back with the family. So that makes sense to me? Okay, that makes sense. I get. I'm going to be in Kansas City. Can you set up an interview while I'm there? Yes, I can. So we got 2 of those hurdles cleared. I wasn't really worried about the house then because the real estate market hadn't dropped out, but I was terribly concerned about the bonus. And I talked to this guy 5 times. I'm like, why are you walking away from a 5-figure bonus? And every time he said, I'm a QA tester, I want to develop. And we got him a job as a developer, and he walked away from that bonus. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
But,
wow.
Yeah, but that's it's something that was a huge concern to me, and so you have to have logical reasons for wanting to be there. I can't find a job in my market is not a good reason to want to move.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I mean, it sounds like when I break down what an employer wants to know, the first one is why are you here? In other words, why do you want this job? And I think that the answer needs to be specific, very specific. And it sounds like you're mirroring the same idea, that it can't just be, I want to be with a growing company and I want to grow with the company kind of thing.
No.
That's an answer that you hear a lot, but it's
I know.
not specific enough.
I know.
You've got to be very, very specific. I like I have family, I got to move. That's a real reason. That's very good. Very good.
Things have to make sense. They have to make sense for me, for anybody. I think that things have to make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to when they do contact you, what information do you need from them? You said that the resume, of course, is really important, and their personality is important. How do they get in front of you? I know that you said email's good, even Twitter or responding to your blog, but what information do you want very succinctly from someone so that they're not, calling you and taking up 30 minutes of your time trying to sell you into why they need a position?
Sure. I think the succinct targets are, I want to know, and I know you coach people to do this, I want to know what the 2 or 3 job targets you have are, because if your job targets and my opportunities don't align, then we need to know that, and hopefully I can point you in the right direction. But if they do align, then we need to figure out a way to get the communication lines opened. And so I think it's just a quick, succinct, I've been looking for a role doing X, Y, or Z, or companies. If you know that a particular recruiter works with a particular company, like RiverPoint works at VML, I've been trying to get into VML. I'm more than happy to talk to people about VML, about Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City, about Assurant Benefits, American Century, Fleischman Hillards. I mean, I've got a bunch of clients, and I'm more than happy to talk to people about my client base and help get people in if I can.
Yeah. And what about non-IT people? I know that when I was talking with Louis, he said that he also takes people that he tries to fit people or at least refer people to the right recruiter if he doesn't work with that type of person. Is that what you do too?
And I'll do the same thing. And actually, I'll try to help get non-IT people into my client base, into non-IT jobs, because obviously we do have connections in those organizations.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes we'll get lucky and somebody will pay us a fee, and more often than not, it's just a goodwill thing for both the client and the job seeker.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So it really is very succinct as to what they're looking for, which is interesting because usually I coach when people are contacting the companies, it really is, hey, I can fill this need. And this is what I can do for you, and it's very audience-focused or company-focused. It sounds like for you, if somebody's contacting you, it needs to be, job seeker-focused. Is that right?
Yeah, I need to, absolutely, because that's what we are. I mean, we are basically an extension of a job search.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you a very touchy question because I know that you and I differ in this.
I know where you're going.
Because we've had this conversation before.
Yes, we have.
Let's talk about your preference on the type of resume when you talk about functional or skills-based versus chronological. So
recruiters want to see chronological resumes.
Yeah.
They want to see them. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't take a look at a functional resume. I think a functional resume can often provide me more ammunition to market a person with, but in the initial stages, I need a chronological resume.
Yeah, yeah. Here's what I found in my experience, and this is why I really love the functionals, is because my clients will get calls from recruiters, and they will say, I hate this functional resume. You have to give me a chronological. But at least, no, honestly, every single one, and I tell them that when I write their resume. I tell them
that's awesome.
And HR people hate functional resumes.
We do.
But they will call you and say, I need a chronological resume.
You know what? That's a great strategy. I like that strategy. See? This is why people get value out of you, because that's a great strategy. We hate them. Yeah. And you know what? If I get a functional resume of somebody that looks like they might fit, I do call them.
That's right. You say, I hate this resume, get me a chronological.
Yeah.
But if they send the chronological, here's the problem. Before they met me, they were sending chronologicals and they weren't getting phone calls at all.
Right.
So at least they're getting that first phone call, and they're engaging that person, and then they.
And isn't that really all the resume is designed to do? Is to get that line of communication open? Yeah.
Yeah. So see, we have the common ground right there.
We might have group hug.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add about dealing with recruiters? Anything that you want the audience to know? We've got a lot of people on the call right now. We've got even more on the internet listening in, and there's going to be even more listening to it later. So what would you like to tell everybody?
I just think that when you're dealing with recruiters, the big things are you need to find somebody that is working not only just for their client, but is working for their client and for the job seeker. You need to find somebody that has as Dave Ramsey would say, the heart of a servant. You need to find somebody that is going to have some compassion for your situation and is going to do what they can. Now, they can't do everything. They can't promise you a job, but they can provide you guidance. They might point you to Tammy. They might point you to the job clubs. But you need to find somebody that really has a passion for doing this. And sometimes I've got a recruiter that's only been with me for about 4 months, and she's awesome at this job. She's going to have a long career in it. I just know it. But there's a lot of churn in recruiting. And so you might even look to see how long that individual has been at that company and how long have they been in recruiting, how long have they been at the company. Because if you find somebody that's been in recruiting for 8 years but has been with 6 different companies, that's kind of a red flag to me that the person is not effective at their job. And so you need to find people that have a compassionate heart, that want to do, that really love doing it, because this is a job that can completely consume you if you let it. You need to find somebody that is aligned with what your goals are in terms of search. If you're not an IT, RiverPoint is not the recruiting firm to be working with, because that's all we do. And then you want to make sure that you're have a open and honest line of communication on both sides of the equation. You have to have somebody that is not playing their cards so close to the vest that you can't make intelligent decisions.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is you really, as a job seeker, you really need to interview the recruiters that you would be working with, and that is a strategy that I don't think anybody's using out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really put them, I hate to say put them on the defensive, but really ask offensive questions to find out what type of person they are. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've had that have had a 6-month or 1-year stint with a recruiting firm, and it's kind of like, well, this is a blip on my screen. I don't really have any achievements for this 6 months, and I just moved on from it. It happens a lot. There's a large amount of churn.
This is a tough job. This is a real tough job.
You know, going back to firms that aren't so reputable, do you feel comfortable sharing the names of some firms that people might want to avoid?
No.
Okay.
I really.
I know you don't.
No, I don't. Okay. I'll give you one name, and I don't think they're around anymore. Bernard Haldane. Anybody remember them?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
when I was working at the executive career firm that I was working at, based out of Denver, Bernard Haldane was one of the big competitors.
Yeah. I would avoid them like the plague. And I don't know if they're still around. I would hope they're not.
I believe they went out of business because of all of the lawsuits that they had.
They should have. And they weren't really an agency or a recruiter. They were a fly by night quote career counseling firm.
Yeah.
They kind of positioned themselves as a recruiter, but they weren't. They were awful.
They were more of just a career firm that helps people get jobs. Yeah.
They were awful.